Man, two things are really apparent as I read 1 Corinthians 9, and I see Paul's discussion about the rights of an individual. And that first thing is really easy for me to agree with. And the second thing is very hard for me to live out. And I feel like this is a passage that changes me profoundly every time I read it because it is so against the way I naturally and normally live. The first thing that Paul wants to make very clear is that he has his rights, and that comes very naturally to me. And it's true. And in fact, you read all of the things that Paul says. He says, am I not free? Am I not an apostle? Have I not seen Jesus our Lord? He says, look, I have power and authority. I have my rights based on my relationship with God and my relationship with the state. I'm a free man. If to others I'm not an apostle, at least I am to you, for you are the seal of my apostleship in the Lord. He says, not only do I have my rights as an individual, not only I have my rights because I've seen Jesus, but I have my rights because I led you guys to the Lord. I am somebody. What I think matters. There should be a better word than rights. Like I have my individuality. Like I can do what I want to do and I can justify it. And keep going. This is my defense to those who examine me. Do we not have the right to eat or drink? Like he's still talking about food sacrificed to idols. And he says, certainly you would say, I have the right to do whatever I want to do. Look in verse 8, do I say these things on human authority? Does not the law say the same? He says, not only do I have my rights as an individual and according to the state and because of who I am in your life, but I also have these rights according to the Jewish law, the law of Moses. Moses said, you shall not muzzle the ox. Paul's saying, look, I should be able to eat what I want. I should get a salary if I want. I have all of these rights. But look at verse 12. If others share this rightful claim on you, do not we even more? He says, look, you should honor me by rights. You should honor me. And nevertheless, we have not made use of this right, but we endure anything rather than put an obstacle in the way of the gospel of Christ. Man, the second thing that Paul says here, the first thing's easy for me, that I have my rights. The second thing is very difficult for me to live out. And it's Paul says, despite having these rights, I'm going to lay them down for the gospel. I'm going to live my life not based on what I can do, what I feel like is right for me to do, but rather I'm going to live my life based on I'm going to do everything I can, lay down my rights for the sake of the gospel. Look at verse 15. But I have made no use of any of these rights, nor am I writing these things to secure any such provision. For I would rather die than to have anyone deprive me of my ground for boasting. So irrespective of the actual argument that Paul's making here, he's making an argument that while he deserves a salary from the people at Corinth, he doesn't demand a salary from the people at Corinth. But however you feel about that, man, there's the heart of this man that is shining through that we could really apply to our lives today. As he says, look, I have my rights, but I'm not writing to secure my rights. I would rather die than have anyone deprive me of my ground for boasting. If I preach the gospel, that gives me no ground for boasting, for necessity is laid upon me. What if it was even that we said, why are we living gospel lives? Why are we proclaiming the gospel? Because necessity is placed upon me. Woe to me if I do not preach the gospel, for if I do this of my own will, I have a reward. But if not of my own will, I am still entrusted with the stewardship. Paul says, look, I don't live my life based on what I claim my rights to be. I live my life like this. The gospel is this beautiful treasure that's been entrusted to me to steward. And I don't want to do anything at all that ever gets in anyone's way of understanding the gospel. If it's a matter of standing on my rights or being an effective minister of the gospel, it's no choice at all. I will lay down my rights. Look at verse 19. For though I am free from all, I have made myself a servant to all that I might win more of them. The question is not what are my rights as a Christian. The question is how do I become the servant of all so that I might win more? What if that was our paradigm? What if our whole life was just, man, what do I have to do today? Are there rights I could lay down? Would that be helpful? It's no like giving up my rights in general because, Jesus wants me to suffer. No, it's not that. It's for a very particular reason. It's, man, my whole goal, the whole reason I'm doing my thing today is that I might win some to the gospel, that I might be the accurate representative of Jesus who laid himself down, that you and I might model Paul who laid himself down and gave up his rights for the sake of the gospel. If you have a chance today to give up your rights for the sake of the gospel, do it. And then Paul gets to the end of this passage and says, look, do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one receives the prize? So run that you may obtain it. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. He's saying, look, if you have to sacrifice, if you have to be a living sacrifice, if you have to sacrifice your pride, you have to sacrifice your rights, you have to sacrifice your money, you have to sacrifice your time, you have to sacrifice in a relationship, if you have to forgive instead of stand on your pride, if you are sacrificing, we're like that athlete that is saying, look, I don't just want to run in the Christian race. I want to receive the goal. I want to honor God so fully that I'm like that dedicated athlete who has his eye on the prize. Paul said, I have rights. Instead of living through the paradigm of nobody can take my rights away, instead I'm going to live on the paradigm of what can I do so that I might win some to Christ. That's very difficult for me to live out because I want my rights. I like my rights. I like being in charge of my own life. But what if I woke up tomorrow morning and said, what would it cost in order to win some to the gospel? Would I be willing to make those sacrifices? Are you? Hey, be loved.